Hello everyone, this is Timothy Mark with Alexandria.
Hello everybody.
And we are Tickle Chunk of Horrors, and we're also World Paranormal Research Society. The website is TickleChunkOfHorrors.com, and the paranormal website is World Paranormal Research Society.net. And so we're going to have Carin, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, C-A-R-I-N.
Yep.
Smurl on the show today. A lot of y'all remember back in the late 80s or mid 80s, somewhere in the 80s, there was this big thing about the Smurl haunting. They actually made a movie about it in 91 called The Haunted, and it was a book called The Haunted, I believe, in 89. But
1986 paperback is the Haunted 1986.
1986, yeah. So we're going to find out a little bit about that. We know Ed and Lorraine Warren actually researched that case. And so we're going to hear from the little girl at the time, who's now grown up, and find out exactly what happened in the case.
So it'll be a very, very interesting show. And really, if you're not familiar with the Smurl Case and their name or their last name, if you want to do some of your own research, S-M-U-R-L-S, Smurls. And they claim that beginning in 1974, their double block home that was located on 328 Chase Street in the city of West Pittston, Pennsylvania, was disturbed by a demon that caused loud noises, bad odors, and we're going to talk to Carin Smurl more about what happened in the home during that time frame.
And the reason why I wanted to do this show actually is because apparently they stayed in the home 15 years. I'm not sure. That's why I want to get a little clarification on this a little bit, because there's no way they stayed in the home 15 years with a demon haunting them. There's been a lot of controversy on Ed and Lorraine's cases in the past. And so, you know, a lot of people said this, a lot of people said that. But we're going to hear it from the girl who lived through it, and hopefully we can get some clarification. We actually found out from Andrea Perron that she actually has a little bit of hostility towards the Warrens with her case, the one they made into the movie The Conjuring. I say that because it seemed like at that time Ed and Lorraine was really out to try to get movies made and books made, and it's a lot of embellishments of some stories there going on. And so we're trying to get to the bottom of this and see what happens.
And I think one of the questions that we're going to ask, and just to put the timeline into perspective, like I said previously, the Smurls claimed that it started, or the beginning started, in 1974, and it's claimed that in 1986 the family brought in a pair of demonologists, again, Ed and Lorraine Warren. So the disturbances start in 1974, and they wait until 1986 to bring Ed and Lorraine Warren. So we're going to get clarification on why that huge gap in time trying to get assistance.
And there's a little bit of clarification needs to be made too about just who Ed and Lorraine Warren was. I would like to check the credentials on a future show of where did Ed get his demonology certifications from to call himself a demonologist, or was he just a self-proclaimed demonologist? I noticed that in some interviews they called them, even Lorraine, a demonologist, but I don't think she's ever referred to herself as a demonologist. So, you know, we'd like to get some clarification on that. Again, we pay tribute to the Warrens because they are royalty in the paranormal industry. However, it was Ed and Lorraine Warren, John Zaffis, and Tony Spira that was a part of that made it what it was. Okay, let's just be real here. So there's other people out there trying to use the name And I'm not sure what type of experience they actually have. We know what they've claimed to have done on social media, and we know that when we researched it, it's not actually ended up that way. And so we're just speaking of credibility. We World Paranormal Research Society, we've been in the industry a long time, and we're a very credible source. But I think whenever you're going to take the name Warren and use it as a paranormal entity, I think that maybe, just maybe, you should have some stuff out there that you've done. And when you say that you've done these high profile cases, but yet your name is not attached to it on any documentary, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little aggravated because I had a call with somebody who I thought we were going to try to help out. And I'm not going to name no names here. And this person seems to have an ego based on what Ed and Lorraine did. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Ed and Lorraine did these things. And so I was willing to help the person out. And, you know, I felt like we got a little slap in the face because, you know, our credibility was questioned when our work is out there for everybody to see. But this individual seems to keep referring to Ed and Lorraine's work. But anyway, I wish this person well. And however, I would not be claiming to be a part of an investigation unless you're physically there. If you're just a secretary for the investigation, which means you're handling phone calls, that's what a secretary does. If that's what you're doing and doing references, then, you know, please don't list yourself as an actual investigator in those things. I don't know. I've got a lot of mixed emotions right now with this one individual that I thought that we were lending a hand to. And, you know, so whatever. You got anything you want to add?
I have a curiosity, or a professional curiosity, about this particular case in particular as well, because one of the information sources that I've come across, and you know, we have to learn that we can't just go by one information source, but this particular information source said that according to Ed Warren, the demon that inhabited the Smurls' home was very powerful, and we'll get more details from our special guest. But they tried to persuade it to leave by playing religious music and praying. And we ourselves have come up with a lot, you know, up against several demonic forces. And I think if a demon is very powerful, you would need a lot more than just playing religious music and praying. I mean, I may stand corrected, but that's in one article.
Yeah, that's in one article. And there's a lot of misinformation when it came to Ed and Lorraine Warren. And again, we're not taking anything from what Ed and Lorraine has done. They've done a lot of great work in the paranormal field. And I think it's clear, and it's pretty clear-cut and obvious that they've also embellished a lot of things, as Andrea Perron basically stated. You know, and they had a lot of issues as well as the facts that was out there. Okay, they are paranormal royalty. We do show them respect. And again, they're the ones that's done the work. So other people trying to claim what they've done, their work that they've done for themselves, I think is BS. Stand on your own merit and be your own person. There's nothing wrong with you wanting to continue on with your family's legacy or work if you're actually doing it. But I think when an organization like ours, whose credibility is undisputed, and we've helped out so many people out there, when somebody like us reaches out to you and says, hey, we respect your family, we're willing to give you a helping hand, you should actually be a little more appreciative, I would think, instead of claiming Ed and Lorraine's work for yourself. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there on different cases. And my BS meter is going off because who's going to stay in a house? for 15 years with a demon in it.
And that's what we try to do on this show too, is that we try to show you that there's many different trains of opinion, different trains of thought, and you cannot always believe the first thing that you read, because somebody's going to have maybe a tiff, or they're going to have their own personal opinion. And I'm curious too, because in this particular article as well, it does say that after months of investigation, meaning that Ed and Lorraine Warren were with the Smurls for months in regards to this very strong demon. And they're also...
Well, now, is that a reference to the movie or the actual reference to the case?
Actual reference to the case.
Oh, okay.
That's prior to mentioning the movie, and that's where they say after the months of investigation that Ed had number of audio tapes that contained knocking and rapping that was caused by this demon.
And you know, the whole thing is that, okay, the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine, had all this evidence, right? Where is it at? Where is it at? Why is it not out there on social media? Where's all this evidence at? I want to see it. And the whole thing is, the whole reason I want to see it is because as a paranormal researcher, who again, I show respect to Ed and Lorraine, the people that actually were there and done the work. I show respect to them, but who's got this evidence? Who's hoarding it, and why is it not out there on the internet? That's what I want to know. All this evidence is out there. Where can we find this evidence? That's what I want to know. If somebody could put in the comment section down below where we can find this evidence, that'd be great. I mean, we watched hours and hours. We studied the work of Ed and Lorraine. And I can tell you, they were amazing people. They've done amazing work. Their daughter, Judy, a very nice lady. Tony, and John Zappis, we know their work is undisputed because they've been out there and you know, you can see the work that they've done. It's out there for the world to see. But there's other people out there trying to ride on other people's coattails and I don't know. I feel like in a way they're kind of dishonoring the name. But anyway,
it's just interesting that we get to get different takes on different cases, and we're going to have Carin join us. And this case seems to be particularly interesting because apparently these audio tapes were handed over to the church, and when somebody from a newspaper contacted the church years later, they had no record. So the question is, where is this evidence? Who has this evidence? And why haven't they come forward to say, or even put it available on the internet, here is the evidence in regards to this Smurl haunting? Because I think a lot of people, if this is indeed involving a demon, I mean, we could learn a lot of things about this particular incident.
And I think you know, in the defense of Ed and Lorraine, you know, if you give it to a diocese, if you give the evidence to a diocese, you turn it over, and then 10 years later a newspaper tries to contact the diocese, well, there's going to be a turnover of people, and probably things get shuffled around and lost. So that might be why they can say, and it's online that they say that they do not have it, but that doesn't mean that they haven't had it. So again, here I am defending Ed and Lorraine, and the only reason I'm doing that is because as a paranormal researcher, I do respect the work that they have done.
They've done a lot of groundbreaking work. They have uncovered evidence. So I have a lot of respect for Ed and Lorraine Warren, and with anybody that's in the public eye. We can attest to that as well in a different avenue that we work in, that once you're in the public eye, you become fair game for people that want to rip you apart and just watch for every tiny mistake, and they magnify that mistake and they just go to town on you. So that's one of the not so benefits of being in the public eye or being a public figure.
Yeah, and they did great fighting off the skeptics. But what I would like to say, and what I'd like to note is, the people that try to take the name. Okay, let me give you an example. Okay, if my relative done something and they were very successful at it, and they passed away, or one of them retired, and I try to take their name and claim their work for myself, you know, I would question the fact, why is other family members not really with you with that.
On board with you.
On board with you. And so, you know, why is other family members a part of other things, other organizations and other entities that actually do not list your name in it? And again, I'm not going to mention nobody's name. I guess my whole thing is I'm a little upset because we genuinely, I can't even pronounce it. Genuinely tried to help out an individual that I thought had potential, and they had the audacity to want to know. I mean, our stuff's out there. People can see it. It's everywhere. Want to know our work when they only reference their grandparents' work. Now, maybe that's a hint. I don't know who I'm talking about, but I don't really have a personal problem with the person. It's just I feel like you're taking the name, you're going in, you have a good idea, but you need to be affiliating and not trying to devour other entities, other organizations for your own sake, and try to claim people's work as your own. And, you know, stop doing that.
And, you know, in defense of what we do, our evidence stands on its own. We don't need to have anybody validate our evidence, verify our evidence. If you watch our videos that we've put out, the evidence speaks for itself. And, you know, we've written several books on a few of the entities that we've encountered. So, and our books stand on its own. And, you know, we don't need to ride on the coattails of anybody.
Yeah, we're on our own merit here. But I'm going to be honest with you. If I was related to Ed and Lorraine, I probably would have done something similar. But I would have had the common sense to recognize affiliations and the benefits of that, instead of trying to. And you know what? If you're Ed and Lorraine, that's one thing. But if you're not Ed and Lorraine and using the name, affiliations is going to be your best bet. And the way that you're going about it sucks. And we found out that some of the things that you claimed that you were the lead investigator on is pretty public knowledge that you was not. And
well,
so,
I mean, you know, when you have somebody that's on the front lines doing the work in the, you know, the line of fire, and, you know, you're putting in yourself in a potentially could be a deadly situation. I mean, you would like to have ownership of what you're doing, and, you know, to say that, you know, we're the ones that caught the evidence. You don't want to do all the dirty work, and then somebody else is going to ride on our white horse and saying, I did this, I did that. I mean, there's no partnership there.
Yeah, there's no partnership in it. And actually, what this person is trying to do, just so people out there listening can know, they're trying to get other paranormal investigators who are established to actually work under their name. And they want to have the evidence and basically have the ability to say that it was them, their entity, their organization, as they're sitting in their home, and they seems like that they want to say that they're the ones that are coming up with this stuff. And there's no benefit for anybody to really work with these people. And it would be beneficial if it was an affiliation program and not a devouring program. And I know people are probably lost because they don't know who we're talking about. And again, because I respect the family, I'm not going to say any more on it. I think we should get off the topic.
But in retrospect, any partnership, any business venture has to benefit both parties, or animosity comes into sooner or later. Right. I mean, wouldn't you want to be in a partnership where both people are going to benefit from seeking knowledge, and you can share the knowledge? It's just, it can't always be about the fame and fortune.
Well, sadly, there's a lot of people that's going to be stupid enough to do it, and they're going to realize years down the road that they were screwed. But I'm like I say, I respect, these are the people I respect as far as the Warren family. I respect Ed Warren, Lorraine Warren, Judy Spear, Tony Spear, and John Zaffis. And I say that because I respect the work that they've done. And for anybody else to try to come along and take the Warren name and claim this and claim that, And again, we will ask Carin Smurl if this one individual was involved in their case, and they probably was. I mean, it's a good chance because it's a relative. Maybe they was, and exactly what role they took. And they, by their own admission, said that they really wasn't involved that much in the case. But, you know, one of the things that they have claimed is there was lead investigators on other stuff. There's one article that came out referencing the Amityville thing that I was actually going to put on one of my websites until I read the interview and realized that this person is trying to ride on the coattails of the Amityville thing, and it's got their name in it, but they didn't have nothing to do with the Amityville thing. And even in the interview it says they didn't, but the people interviewing this person still kept talking about the Amityville thing. And it's like, I don't know, it's sickening to a certain degree. And I would hope this individual comes around and will change their way and get onto board with affiliations and not a devouring program where it seems like they're trying to just, there's no benefit. There's no benefit for anybody to really join with them other than the fact that you get to use their name. And that's kind of like pimping out your family name. And it really sucks. But anyway, so I'm over that. Let's talk about the Smurl Case. There was a book in 1986, a film in 1991. And let's go into a little bit of the story.
Well, basically, and you know, a thing that we're going to raise with Carin as well is that they're saying that allegedly a demon inhabited their home from 1974 all the way to 1989. So that, again, I want some more information on why they stayed there so long. If it was, you know, a demon is a very serious issue with the potential for, you know, a lot of people getting hurt. And we know that some of the reports are this demon caused loud noises, bad odors. They actually threw their dog into a wall and shook mattresses. And apparently they said that Carin was the one that was pushed down the stairs. We're going to ask Carin about that as well.
Yeah, one of the things was the home was actually a duplex home, and something that you told me earlier that I didn't actually realize was, I guess, the family of the dad lived next door, the mother and dad of the father. On
the other side of the home, which would be the other side of the duplex, yes.
Right, and so I've seen a picture of the home, and you know, I don't know why. One, it seems like you got a lot of family members in the family to be staying in such a small home. Again, a lot of people did that in the 80s. I mean, you know, my grandparents, they had a lot of kids and grandkids, and I was in a house with a lot of people, but you know, I don't know why you'd want to stay in one that has a demon in it for 15 years. So as you know from our last podcast show that we did find out that the Conjuring movie was crap. We found it out from the real family member, the true story, what happened. It was more of it was less scary than the movie tried to make it be. And we're going to just try to get some clarification on the Smurl family. And then I think we're going to wrap it up on this series dealing with the Warren family. Again, nothing against the Warrens or the Spears and the Zaffas. We definitely respect them.
And what's interesting about this particular case as well is it has been said that the home was blessed by several priests who said that they saw no harmful activity while they were on the property, blessing the property. And it's also alleged that Janet Smurl said there was an unidentified priest who performed 3 unsuccessful exorcisms, and that the demon avoided the exorcism by moving between the duplex. So that's how apparently they couldn't do the exorcism properly, because the demon would go to the other side of the duplex to avoid the rite of exorcism.
And I would like to state too, and clear up one other thing before I respond to that, was when it came time to partnering with this person that we tried to help out, I'm just going to say we chose not to do the program. It was us that made the decision not to. You're hearing it right here, because we seen it more as a chance to affiliate. But we did not see it as much of a value for us to take on the name of something after we've been so established for so long. And so we work on our own merit. But yeah, for a demon to go from one house to the other to avoid the exorcism, if the family lived next door of the father, why didn't they just go into the other side of the duplex?
I don't know. I mean, this is just one article that's why 3 of the exorcisms were unsuccessful, because the demon would just move between the double block home. I guess he wised up and he figured And another thing is that in 1986, a priest from the local diocese spent 2 nights at the Smurl home and said nothing unusual happened during the 2 nights that he stayed there. And to my knowledge, that anything religious or even a priest staying in the home, if you had a demon there, wouldn't the demon find the priest staying there for 2 nights offensive, and wouldn't something happen? I mean, that's just questions that a lot of our listeners may have as well, because we see a lot on movies and a lot of maybe things that are not factual. If you're not a demonologist, you would not know in regards to a true demonic possession or a demonic entity. Everybody seems to think what Hollywood says goes.
Yeah, and one thing that I noticed on social media today was Carin had posted something about an empath. So I'm kind of curious to ask if she's an empath, I guess, after living through something like that. And again, I believe the house was haunted to the extent it was haunted. So let people listening, yeah, our BS meter goes off on certain elements of the haunting of this story. We're not saying that the house was not haunted. We're just saying that things get embellished to make money on books and films. And so we've been in the industry. We've been in this paranormal field for years, many years, and we can tell you when our BS meter goes off, we're usually right. And so, but living through such a haunting or an experience like what she lived through, maybe she is an empath. But also, to my knowledge, the priest is there ever a priest that came out that said they actually went into the home?
Well, they just said they're not naming this particular priest in this one particular article, and then they don't give a specific priest in here. And then one article, I forget, I'll have to make reference to that there was a different priest that Ed and Lorraine Warren had used before that was called in. But in this particular article that I'm looking at, they just make reference to the priest or several priests. So for whatever reason, they don't want to name his name on this particular article.
Well, I mean, I think that's because, and I've listened to, again, I am a demonologist. I'd be curious to see where Ed got his demonology certifications from, or if he's self-proclaimed. But, as a demonologist, I have definitely studied the works of Ed and Lorraine Warren, and I will tell you that what were we just talking about?
We're talking about priest named demonology.
The priest have denied ever being on a lot of the cases. The Warrens said they had priests on. A lot of the Catholic priests have denied ever being there. And so, it's weird because I've never had that happen in our field of experience, and the priests that I've worked with and dealt with. I've never had one priest deny being at a location. I mean, so that's a little weird.
That's a little suspect, and I mean, you have to go to the credibility of whatever article that you're dealing with in regards to not wanting to have their names mentioned. And in this other article, it says Ed and Lorraine Warren, they even commissioned Father Robert McKenna to perform.
And that's the nut case, I believe it said. Is that the nut that said he did over 40,000? I can't remember. There's one of the priests said he spent
that may be it.
40,000 exorcisms, which would be a flat out lie. There's no way it could happen. And so, but
in this other article, it's Father Robert McKenna is the priest that performed 3 of the exorcisms, and it said the 3rd time appeared to have been successful, but according to the Smurls, the entity returned. And then finally in 1989, after 15 years, of otherworldly abuse, the family moved. So 15 years.
Yeah, well, and again, that's what raised my meter, because we've been into some pretty severe demonic locations ourselves, and there's no way, if there was a true demon in that location, there's no way you can survive in a location like that for 15 years.
No, that's an excessive amount of time to deal with that kind of onslaught
without a severe tragedy happening.
Deaths. I mean, we all know that demons play real. It's live or die, and people, the capacity for being possessed. I mean, most of the time when there's a demon, one of the individuals in the family becomes possessed. And that's one thing about this case, that in the articles that I've read, there's not one mention of one of the family members being possessed by this demon. The mother and father supposedly have been sexually assaulted by this, could be an incubus or a succubus, but certainly none of the family members that I know, and we'll ask Carin if they've been possessed by this demon.
And that's what we're here to do. We're here to clarify. The story, because we know Hollywood and book publishing companies will embellish stories. So we're here to get some truth, get some clarification from Carin. And for all the paranormal researchers out there, my advice to y'all is stand on your own merit. If you have an organization that you formed and you're working on, continue to follow your path, and don't get under the coattails of somebody who's just going to take your work and call it their own. And so be very careful of people out there that want to do that. Use your work. Be very careful.
Just be able to stand on your own 2 feet.
Yeah.
And when in the world is, don't try and ride on somebody else's coattail. Try and make your own way in the world. It's great to have famous family members, but you got to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet, and you've got to get in the trenches, and you may have to actually get your hands dirty, as they say, and do some work. Yeah, and it's not always coming to you on a silver platter. And
exactly.
What the whole idea behind our show is, when we have these guests that have been involved in real life hauntings, is you can read all the stuff all over the internet, but when you have somebody that was there firsthand, you may have a different take or different perspective on that particular case. None of us were there, so we can only go by what we read, and as we know, social media is not always the go-to place for factual information, and you've got to keep that in mind. Even as paranormal researchers ourselves, I mean, we go by what we actually see with our own eyes. We can validate that because we were there, and somebody else writing about maybe what we've investigated, how in the heck would they know? They weren't there.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. Like, I'm still at a loss, and actually I'm still a little kind of offended by it. And so I don't really understand it. And
I mean, I think if this individual actually maybe watched some of our videos, our evidence stands on its own. We don't need to have any verification.
Well, what he said to me was very interesting, because his family has been involved in stuff that has been fraudulent. This is out his own mouth. That is why he doesn't watch videos. And that concerns me, because that would tell me that he can't tell the difference between real footage and made-up footage.
And that's very unfair to paint everybody with the same brush, because, when we do investigations, if we don't catch evidence, we don't catch evidence. You can't force the spirits or entities to come out and play. It just doesn't work like that in real life.
And again, this will be our third or fourth episode on the Warrens and their cases, and I think we're going to wrap it up with the Warrens after this one. And but we've been very supportive. Here comes our caller now. Hold on for 1 second. Hello, welcome to the Tip Trunk of Horror Show. Is this Carin?
It is.
Hey, Carin, how you doing? You with Timothy, Mark, and Alexandria. How you doing today?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
One of the things we like to do on the show is we like to clarify, because there's been a lot of controversy out there, and we've been on a kind of a series of shows clarifying some of the things that's happened. As we talked with Andrea Perron, And we clarified the Conjuring story, and now we're trying to just get to the bottom of what happened with your family and your haunting.
Sure, absolutely.
And could you just tell us what the movie and book differed from the reality of the haunting?
Absolutely. Well, I can say that, unlike Andrea's story where, it was done for the big screen. I mean, it was, Hollywooded up. And ours was done, made for TV. And luckily, I mean, my parents got a very big say in the final product. My mom said, we'll do it, but, we don't want special effects to the point where, it's just absolutely ridiculous and people, it's even harder for people to believe it. We want to respect the fact that there's children in the movie as far as, language, nudity, things like that. So, my mom, I wanted to tell the actual story. So, like I said, we were lucky to be involved in that process. And then I do remember, I was only in 6th grade when this came out. So I do remember, the producers, did come in and they had us all to a hotel to watch it before it aired on TV. So my parents literally got to watch the finished product, give their say, give their opinions, and before anybody else got to see it. So that's where I think ours differs from those large screen, films. So we were lucky in that aspect. Because of all of those things, it is very close to the real story. I always say that the book is a little bit better in my opinion, only because it's longer, it's got more detail, it's held more of the story, that maybe they couldn't fit into 1 hour and 45 or 2 hours. But, I'm very grateful. My mom was always grateful that we were able to do it that way because it does tell a very accurate picture of the story.
Can you tell us some of the things that actually happened in the house to you personally?
Absolutely. I mean, again, I was young. They moved into that house in 1972. I wasn't even born at that time. I was actually not born until 1978. Excuse me. And it was quite a bit of a fixer-upper. My grandfather, he was a welder and did a lot of plumbing, electrical, so they worked on the house a lot themselves. They lost everything in the flood of 1972. There was a huge flood in this area, and they lost everything, and that's how they ended up in that home. But they did all the work themselves. So it was a fixer-upper. It did take many years to kind of get it, between painting and fixing porches and putting new heaters and boilers and all that stuff, kind of from the ground up. But at that time, my parents said, with little things, like things would just disappear. So, being that there was children in the house, they kind of always got blamed for it, but they kind of, in retrospect, said, oh, that was weird, but, at the time it was just something went missing. But my dad said, I would be laying right there on the floor, and I'd be fixing a pipe, and I'd put the wrench down, and 2 seconds later, go to pick up the wrench, it was gone. Nobody was in the room, nobody came in, I didn't move, I was in the same spot, but it was just little things like that would annoy. Also, being that they did the work themselves, a lot of things would go wrong, and my grandfather would be like, I did this myself. I know I did this myself. I know I did it right. And it was just, that's something maybe he just installed last week would break, or wiring that he just put in last week would break. A pipe that he just put in last week would burst, and it would flood the entire basement or the entire kitchen. And he's like, just thing after thing after thing that just kind of was frustrating. And again, the kids would always get blamed. There's little kids, they touched it, they must have took it, they must have broke it. So kind of started there. Also, my sisters were younger at the time. My sister would see things in the house. She was only, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 2 of them, and they would see, white figures, kind of how they explained it, floating above them while they were sleeping. I actually remember specifically seeing that myself as I got older. I remember, there was a big thunderstorm one night when I was about 4 or 5, and it was so loud and I was terrified. And I was running down the hall and, jumped into my parents' bed. And, can I sleep with you guys? And I remember, my dad works hard, he'd snore. My mom works hard, she'd snore. And I'm laying in between them, and I'm kind of just there looking up at these things. And I'm 4 or 5. I don't know what it is. I'm watching these things. I see a lady in white. I see, you know, just all these things. I kind of wasn't scared at that point. Like, that didn't scare me. I never remember waking my mom up to say, Mom, what's that? But I do remember there was a dark figure that would always stand at the end of my bed. And my mom used to say I called him the man in the box, or the shadow man. And we had, like, a toy box right at the end of the bed, and, you know, I'd jump on that and, you know, jump into bed. My mom said I would see him every night just standing there watching me, and I would always ask, who's that man? Who's the man in the box? So actually those are the two first things I can remember, and then slowly but surely, you know, it would be, you'd be laying in bed at night, and I remember I could hear voices, and it sounded like they were, like, under my pillow or under my bed, and I couldn't make out what they were saying. You know, it didn't make sense. It wasn't, you know, I don't want to say it was a different language, but I could never make out. It was always just multiple different voices just whispering. And, you know, you pick your head up and you wouldn't hear it. When you put your head down, you would hear it. And that was something that I found out over the years that also happened to my mom, also happened to my other sister. You know, when you're little, like, my parents aren't going to come to me and say, hey, you know, your mom's hearing voices. Of course not. I found these things out later that I wasn't the only one experiencing that.
Right.
And slowly, you know, then it went into voices, and then, you know, there was a few times, maybe when I was about 5, 6, and 7, where it started to get physical. You know, I had been pushed, or I say thrown, I'll say pushed or thrown down the stairs. And I remember, you know, just waking up and going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and then all of a sudden I'm so scared that I can't move. And then the next thing you know, I'm, you know, flying down the stairs and, you know, smashing into the wall at the bottom of the stairs, feeling like somebody picked me up and threw me down. And again, at the same time, at that point, I didn't know my mom was being scratched and my sister was being attacked in the shower, because they didn't share those things with us, trying not to scare us further. So, you know, we were each having our own experiences, and at first it was like nobody kind of talked about it. Like, my dad, if my mom had an experience, you know, he'd talk to my dad, or if my older sister had an experience, she would tell my mom. Or, you know, if I was scared, you know, I would tell my mom. So in the beginning, it wasn't like we weren't all sharing and going, oh my God, this is all happening to everybody. This is, something really is going on here. You know, until years later, it was just to the point where everybody was being attacked all the time. So it was just this weird progression, I think, that everybody thought they were kind of going crazy, but, you know, we were, it was just weird, like, almost like nobody wanted to admit it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah,
and
because
again, and my parents didn't want to scare us, and my older sister didn't want to scare us. So it was just, it was really strange in the beginning to kind of be on your own, but not. You have this big family, but everybody's having their own experiences.
Because in the research that we've done on the on your family's haunting, it says that, I guess, for 15 years, there's a lot of articles that saying for 15 years there was a demon in the home. But what I'm hearing is there was actually a progression to that point, which was great for you to say that, because I was finding it hard to accept the fact that there would be a demon in there for 15 years, and that and it's better for me to accept it as saying, hey, you know, it's a progression, something that progressed over the time, which a lot of these people writing these articles are, I don't know, man, but they try to start off with a demon was there since day one.
There's just to put it out there, there was one specific gentleman who worked at the local newspaper, and he used to write the biggest load of crap, and it wasn't just our family. This guy was disliked by every organization and every group in the city. I mean, he would literally verbally go after anybody he could. He would go after teachers, he would go after politicians, he would go after nurses. Any big story that was in the news, he would just break those people down. And he did not have a very good reputation around here, and his name was Steve Corbett. And I'm going to bring up his name because he, to this day, it's funny, he was actually so bad that he got death threats from people in the area for the things that he would say and that he would write. I had no idea what happened to him. Apparently he left and moved out to California for quite some time, and then lo and behold, I got asked to do an interview for a local radio station a couple years ago. I did the interview. It was with two great, awesome guys. The interview was fantastic. They were so respectful. It was fantastic. And then I got a message on Facebook, maybe 6 months later, that this guy was back in the area. He was working for that radio station, and he apparently did a radio show 6 months after my interview, and just went right back to the same thing, just totally slamming my entire family, just totally calling us every name in the book. And somebody had sent me a link to this and said, you should listen to this. And I went right onto the radio station. I'm like, I cannot believe after the interview I did, you would let this guy talk about my family this way. And apparently, a couple weeks later, he was fired. But my point of saying all this is, this gentleman, for some reason, is like the basis for every article that people can go back and find. He either wrote the article, or people he considered him an expert on the case and would interview him because he did so many articles on it. And everything he said was out of pure just hate and disrespect. And unfortunately, his stuff is a lot of the stuff that's out there and that you find. All of those articles back then, almost all his.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's because we found a lot, and we were talking about it when we started the show. It was like, there's no way the demon was there since day one.
No.
And we didn't believe that at all. But when y'all actually called in the paranormal researchers to come into the home, I know Ed and Lorraine was a part of that, but who else was a part of the team that was there?
Honestly, they had a bunch of people that they kind of were training. I actually remember that Johnny Zaffis, that's kind of where he was still, Johnny Zaffis, the nephew. Well, obviously he's big now on TV, so most people do know him. But, he was there, and he was kind of still training at that time. And, he would come and, I can't remember the other guy's name, Tony something, not Tony Sparrow, but there was another Tony. And, but as far as, like, that team, they were, like, the trusted people. There was always somebody trying to get into the house. And people laugh hysterically when I tell them this. But it's the honest to God's truth. My right hand to God, my father's grave. We had every crazy on the planet trying to get into our house. I'm talking as far as like people like with voodoo dolls, like wanting to cut off like chicken heads and do like rituals. I mean, you name it. We had people knocking on the door, witches, covens. Let us come in. We'll get rid of the demon. Like, it was insane. Like, you just never knew what you were gonna encounter from day to day. But it was, like you said, it was a progression. And when Ed and Lorraine Warren came in, they never said it's just the demon. I mean, she picked up on the spirits. There was tragedy in that home. There was tragedy on that land. There were other things that happened. I can't think if it was the woman that killed the man or the man that killed the woman. Let me think. I believe the man killed the wife because the wife was having an affair. So there was like that type of domestic murder on the property at one point. There was also the neighbors had said that there was a really old woman that had lived there, and she was like, I'm talking back when women stayed home, the man went out to work. Her husband passed away, and she was like, she didn't work. She never worked, and she couldn't afford to keep the property. And they took the property from her, and apparently there was on record had said something like, I'll never, you can't take my property, this is my home, and I swear I'll curse this land for whoever lives here in the future will have nothing but harm come to them. And there was also a deed. It's actually, my mom has a copy of it somewhere. I asked her to find it for me for somebody else, actually. There is a deed that my parents' lawyer found at the courthouse on record that literally said that we are not responsible for harm due to or caused by creatures. That deed has been disputed over the years because how long ago was that written? Could it have meant supernatural creatures? Maybe. Could it have just been, a long time ago? Maybe somebody was like, well, maybe there was animals in the area, Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a pack of wolves. Who knows? It could have meant anything, but that was always something that was up for debate, So there's this weird history that goes along with the house and the land. And surprisingly, I get a lot of calls, for help from people. Whether it's just to kind of point them in the direction of somebody that can help them, or somebody asks me, hey, I got this weird thing going on in my house. Can you help? And you would not believe the amount of calls I actually get from that area. Like, there are so many homes in that very small vicinity that are experiencing paranormal issues to this day. I got a call from a lady the next street over, and she says, I think my dad's possessed. You should see him. I don't even know what to do. So I get a lot of calls from, like, I would say an 8-block radius in that area still to this day.
Yeah, and I mean, that could be, if you go back to do even looking at historical records, I mean, there could be Native American burial grounds, there could be anything. And the thing that struck me right away is when you told me about renovations, and a lot of people, I mean, myself being an empath, is that even when I renovated one of my homes, renovation can stir up a lot of spiritual energy or energy that's within the Earth's atmosphere, whether you're doing renovations, and that could have been the progression too with ongoing renovations, that these spirits came forward in regards to the energy that was, you know, there's a lot of residual energy in the earth, and, you know, people live and died in their homes way back then, so it only stands to reason that there was a lot of deaths, you know, again, it could be a Native American background, it could be a lot of things, but the thing that struck me that you mentioned again, that stuck out again, was renovations. And I know a lot of people, that stirs up a lot of things, and we're trying to tell people too that all these articles that are on the internet, the first thing that pops out is demon, demon. I mean, that seems to be everybody's go-to word for crying out loud.
Yeah, and obviously your family encountered a demon at some point, and could you describe how that changed things for y'all?
Absolutely. And I just, before I forget, because I will forget, I just wanted to step back on a statement that you just made. You had talked about Native American issues on the land. It's actually funny because in the 1970s, there was actually huge battles around here.
Right.
And close to that area, there's like a stone called Witch's Rock and one called Bloody Rock. And there's actually stories of Native American, Native American mother. Her son was killed by the white man, and she said that she was going to take revenge on these people. And apparently, so the story goes. You can actually look this up. You can research this. It's online. She actually was, I think, she said she was going to put like a curse on these people for generations, and she actually scalped or stoned to death so many soldiers that were involved in the murder of her son. And like I said, it's called Bloody Rock.
Right.
And if you pull it up, and I think I guess that would be considered Wyoming, Pennsylvania, it's there. The whole story is there. But things like that happened like all around that area. And I even have a relative that's buried in the cemetery there. His last name was Jenkins. He came from Connecticut in the 1700s, and he was part of that battle. He was my grandmother's relative, and there's actually a town named after him. It's called Jenkins Township, and he's buried in the cemetery right there. So it's like weird, because there's like all this weird energy like connected, and I always tell people this is not like a simple story, I don't think. But when you brought up the demon, you know, it's crazy because, you know, when they came into the house, they did say, you know, there's this female here, there's this male, there was this murder, there's all these things, but there's a negative demonic energy in the house, and they explained it like this. They said this demonic energy is kind of using these human spirits as like pawns, like to kind of do his dirty work. That's kind of like the easiest way to put it,
right? Like
puppets. And you know, I remember. Again, I was little, and I just found this out maybe 2 years ago, and I just cried.
Right.
The story about my father being attacked, about my father being raped. You know, people always questioned that, and they always laughed. And I always tell people, you know, my dad was a Navy guy. Why would my father make up a story like that, knowing as a man that he's going to be ridiculed for this for his entire life?
Right.
And he was a very tough guy. You know, he took care of his family. He was a tough guy. And a couple of years ago, my oldest sister, she's 9 years older than me, Dawn, she was more involved in all this while they tried to kind of keep it away from us when we were younger. And so if my mom was having issues at home, she would tell my sister, okay, this is what happened, that she was my mom's go-to besides my father. So I remember 2 years ago we were sitting talking, and she said, I'll never forget that morning. And I said, well, what? And she said, the night that Dad was attacked, she said, I guess he didn't wake my mom up to tell her. The next morning, she said, that's the first time I saw Dad cry. I guess she said, I got up in the morning and my mom was holding my dad and my dad was crying. And he was talking about how he had this, like, white, I don't want to call it, like, ectoplasm, but for a lack of a better word, this white material that was all over his, like, growing area. And it smelled awful, and it was sticky. And, I mean, I hate to be graphic, but this is what happened.
Right.
And she said he was there, and my mom was holding him, and she said he was a mess. And she's like, I never saw him like that before, and I never saw him like that afterwards.
Wow.
And he had told us about times where he would get up to go to the bathroom, or he would hear a noise and he would get up to check on it. My dad was a gun owner. He was a member of the NRA. He heard a noise that night, he was getting up to check what it was so he could protect his family.
Mm-hmm.
And, there were times where he woke up in the middle of the night, and it was a big, long hallway between their room and the bathroom. Like, my parents' room and my room were totally different ends of the hallway. And he would get up and, he'd be at one end of the hallway and trying to get back to his bedroom, and she said there would be something there with red eyes, looking at him, growling at him, and he can't move, and he can't go past, he can't get to the room. There were times where, we had the typical corny, hey, I got 3 scratches, but we'd have the scratches, we'd have the burning scratches. And it's not something that ever stopped. I remember, for me, the scariest thing besides, I was thrown, I was pushed, I saw a lot of stuff, but people always say, what was the scariest thing that happened to you? It was years later that I actually had the most traumatizing experiences. I'm 40, I just turned 40 in September. It's just now, I'm just now at 40, starting to get over the things that happened to me when I was 15 and 19. For the first time, like last month, I was able to sleep with the light off in my bedroom because it scares the crap out of me today just to think about, like, I was alone in my living room at the new house in 1997, and I was sitting on the couch at 2 o'clock in the morning watching TV. Everybody else was asleep because I couldn't sleep, and we always had big dogs, and the dogs would always, like, stay downstairs till the last family member went up,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he got up, and the hair on his neck stood up, his tail went down, the front part of his body went down, and he just showed his teeth like never before. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? It's 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm watching TV, I'm half asleep. I'm like, what? Are you okay? Like, what? And he just crawled forward real low, growling and showing his teeth until he, like, got 3 feet from the corner of the room. And he just looked like he had something pinned there. And it didn't, like, it dawned on me at first because I was 19. It was 1997.
Right.
And I thought, I just went, oh, crap. I didn't say crap, but I said, oh. And I ran. And I ran. And I ran in my parents' room, and I, like, was hyperventilating, and I got my dad up, and I'm like, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God. Like, he saw something that I didn't see.
Well,
and because I'm thinking, it is, like, all these years later, like, it never stopped. And the one time I was down in the bathroom in the basement, and, like, we had a bar area, and there was, we were watching TV, me, my mom, my dad, my sister, and, there was a commercial, we were watching a movie, one sister went up to the bathroom, I went down to the bathroom, and I'm sitting, just sitting there doing my thing, and all of a sudden I heard, like, this banging, and I'm like, what in the world are they doing up there? Like, I'm up below the base, or the living room floor. What in the world is going on up there? Like, it didn't even dawn on me. And then, like, all of a sudden, it just literally sounded like, 300-pound man punching the walls around me. And all of a sudden, the door just slammed so hard, because because I had it open. I was down there by myself in the basement, you know?
Right.
The door slammed so hard that I literally thought it was going to, like, fly off the hinges.
Wow.
And I could just, and I see, I'm very sensitive, too, and, like, I could feel it. Like, we always talk about we could feel, like, the change in the atmosphere when something negative is around, and I still can to this day. But, like, I knew, and I just was absolutely terrified. I got up, and I ran up those stairs. I was 15 at that time. That was before that. I'm 15 years old, laying on the living room floor, hyperventilating with my pants down around my ankles for everybody to see in my glory. My dad and my mom are going, oh my God, what happened? I couldn't even breathe for like 5 minutes. And I told them what happened. My dad got up and went downstairs, you know, cursing and saying, you know, you this and you that and you coward. How are you you're gonna pick on a teenage girl? Come after me. Fight like a man, you know, like. So even at, you know, everybody thought it like stop. Even at 15 and 19, we were still having these experiences. And you can't tell me that a female, or I'm sorry, not female, you can't tell me that a human spirit was following us around all these years, terrorizing us, doing these types of things. You know?
I got two things for you. Actually, when you first started talking during the interview, if you listen to this ever, at the beginning, our equipment actually flew across the room here. And so I had to get everything back together so that we could hear everything. Now, you'll hear that in the beginning of the show.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. That's the first time it's ever happened. And
well, I have my phone. Like, if you guys can't hear me good, I apologize. But I actually am doing this in my bedroom because I had to put my phone on speakerphone because I tried to answer a phone call earlier, and for some reason, I couldn't hear. Like, if I take you off speaker, I can't hear you guys. So I can only hear if I have it on speaker, so my phone's not even working.
Wow. And that's crazy because I'm telling you, right when you first started speaking, the equipment flew across the room. And you'll hear me scrambling to get everything back together if you listen to the show. But the other question I had for you is, at what point did you bring in a priest or a pastor or something of that nature?
We were always we were always Catholic, and you know, in the very beginning, my mom said like, okay, I just want the priest to come in and bless the house, and they did just that, you know. But when things really started to happen, and my mom went to the church, they were like, listen, we don't do that anymore. Like, we would have to get permission from the bishop, like it would be a whole big thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that they told my parents like that's old school, like exorcisms, they don't teach that anymore. That's not something that people do, you know. And my mom, well, we had a lot of friends that lived on the street. Luckily, we had a lot of good people, so it wasn't all bad. But my mom's best friend lived down the street, and she was down her house just having coffee, you know, while the kids were at school. And she said, Janet, listen, I just saw you know, remember whenever we used to get like a TV guide in the mail? You know, everybody had a TV guide. She said, I saw this thing in the TV guide. There's just going to be these people on whatever show it was. I don't remember off the top of my head. But, you know, there was going to be an interview. There was going to be these people on TV. So she said she watched it, and they were advertising that they were going to be at the local college doing a seminar.
Right.
And she said, why don't you go? Why don't you go? So that's how we got them involved. And they're the ones that actually got the church involved because they had that experience and because they knew people. But, you know, it was tough, like, even for them getting people to help. But my dad was a member of, like, the Rosary Club. You know, he was the usher. You know, he'd go collect the donations, you know, during, you know, communion at church. And so my dad was a member of the church, and we always did stuff with the church. And so they had offered to come pray. So the guys, you know, started to come over with the rosary beads and the holy water. And, you know, there'd be 20 or 30 people in the house, you know, doing the rosary. And it kind of started out like that. And the more and more people that saw it, you know, not just the Warrens, but the neighbors and other family and people from the church, the more people started to see it and the more evidence that we had and the more eyewitnesses we had, the church finally started to say, well, okay, maybe. But we also had to go public and tell our story to get that help too. Because it was almost like, unfortunately, it was almost like we had to shame them into helping us. Like, hey, this is our church. Like, we've been going here we've been Catholics, my dad, since, you know, the 30s and the 40s. And you guys are going to turn your back on us, like that's kind of what it was, almost like bullying them into helping, because that's what they didn't want any part of it. And there's like interesting stories about that even. You know, my mom had called the bishop's office, and they were told, ask for a specific priest. You know, and my mom would call and ask for that priest, and she would get a message that, you know, there's no priest here by that name.
Right.
And my mom would call back days later and say, well, nobody called me back. They're like, well, we didn't get your message. My mom's like, I left a message. They told me there was nobody here by that name.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know, stuff like that, like, almost like it was playing games.
Right.
You know, my mom, you know, I'd call me, what do you mean there's nobody? What do you mean you didn't get my message? What do you know? So it's almost like the devil was playing games and not letting them get messages. And then on the other hand, you know, and my mom literally had to threaten the bishop. She said, I'll do whatever I have to do to my family. And she called Bishop Timler's office, and she said, listen, if you don't help, I'm going to go back to the press, and this is what I'm going to say about the Catholic Church.
Right.
And finally, you know, he decided to kind of say, okay, well, we'll see what we can do. But, I mean, it took, you know, putting our family out there in the public. It took people ridiculing us. It took a media circus. You know, people were coming, laughing, pointing. We couldn't even go out to the grocery store. You know, a shame for my father that he, as a man, had to tell these stories and beg for help. And it was very unfortunate. It definitely was a different time than it is now. The paranormal community is completely different than what it used to be. You know, it was like almost like we were on our own for years before we were able to get help. So I think we had, don't quote me on this, it was, I believe, 3 exorcisms in the original home.
Right.
And 2 exorcisms in the new home.
Wow. I had a question for you, Carin, because a lot of times people that have the gift of sight, or, you know, we all have different gifts, whether it be an empath, psychic, medium. Have you ever thought, or has anybody brought this question up, that maybe one of the family members may have been, how do you say, a sponge for this kind of energy, and that's why the energy followed you? They were attached to a family member. Maybe they're wanting to get a message out, or trying to relay something, hence why, you know, they were around for that amount of time.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny that you asked that. I specifically will never forget this day as long as I live. I was 8 years old, and Lorraine Warren walked into my house one day. She would do things. She was very odd about doing things. She didn't, like, you know, if she had something to say, she didn't come in and say, oh, hi, it's nice to see you. We haven't seen you in a while. Like, it wasn't this big thing. She had something on her mind. She would walk right in and sit down and be like, sit, you know?
Right.
And I remember the one time she walked in, and she sat down at the table, and she said, you know, I need to talk to you guys. And she pointed at, she said, you, and you. You can all see things, and you're always going to, and you know, you're always going to have to protect yourself. You're always going to have to make sure that, you know, you're protected, that you're aware, that you know, just kind of keep on alert. And
right.
We were like, what in the world are you talking about? And she kind of went on to explain this, and it was my mom, my dad, myself, and my oldest sister, the one who's 9 years older than me.
Right.
Well, and it's odd because of all these years, you know, we all talk all the time, because we'll say, oh, my mom will call me tomorrow, and she'll say, Carin, I had to call and tell you this. And I'll say, what? And she'll say, you'll never believe what I saw. I was in the living room, and I saw this person walk through. Stuff happens or I was in the grocery store, and all this stuff flew off the shelf, and this lady was looking at me. These things happen, like, all the time. So, it's just weird because the 2 people that she didn't mention, my other 2 sisters, never have any issues. They never have anything that happens in their home today. They really haven't, you know, had any problems. Whereas the other 4, well, my dad, God rest his soul, he's passed, but the other 3 of us that are still here, constantly, to this day, we're constantly calling each other. We won't even believe what happened today. Guess what happened today? Still, never ends.
That's just almost like you guys are, or how I like to term it, you guys are shortwave radios for spiritual phenomena, and they can, you know, you can pick up different frequencies that the normal person cannot. Hence why somebody, you know, there was reports that, you know, priests went into the house and they didn't encounter any kind of an activity, well, they weren't on the right frequency, or they didn't have the ability to pick up on what was going on. And I think that's why a lot of people say that a lot of cases aren't valid, because, not all of us are, the terminology is awake, haven't been awakened to be able to use, whether you call it your third eye or your psychic intuition. I mean, we all have the ability, but not all of us use it or know how to use it. And I think that's why, entities maybe had the capacity to follow, and once the renovation started, the people that were on the right frequency. And I still think that maybe it wasn't more or less demonic, because, I mean, I have a Native American background, and we believe in shapeshifters, creatures that are able to change from a wolf to a human. And, these entities are very, very real, and they, maybe that's what you encountered in regards to some of the stories about the Native American culture. And like I said, you guys were the shortwave radio for this activity.
And I find it interesting that it's kind of, somebody had, even Johnny Zappis one time had said, Carin, I told Ed and Lorraine that I felt it was something in the bloodline, and they kind of blew him off because it was in the field and whatever. I'll never forget him telling me this. And I said, yeah, it makes sense, Johnny, because even to this day, my daughter is going to be 18 in April. My nephew, so that she would be my daughter. My other sister, who can see and is sensitive, her two sons, one is now 21 and the other is 26.
Right.
Our children have picked right up where we left off. They, even though they weren't involved, they have had experiences their entire life. I mean, entire life.
Right.
I remember stories from when my first nephew was like months old, and I remember. But my daughter, she, to this day, I'll come home from work and so nonchalant, like, doesn't even faze her anymore. She'll say, Mom, I was a little freaked out today. Why, Joe? What happened? Well, I was in the bathroom and I saw that dark guy again, the shadow guy. I'm like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm good. Don't worry. I feel safe. Like, this just happened like last week. I mean, she, one time in her life, she was scared. She came down the stairs at night and she said, Mom, kind of scared. She was like 13, I think. And I said, what happened? And she told me, and she's like, I heard somebody in my room, and the light came on in my closet, and she's like, I feel like, it wasn't something good. She's like, I'm not usually scared, Mom, but this kind of freaked me out. I said, Are you okay? She said, yeah. But she didn't go back upstairs. She kind of stood on the stairs. I said, you're not okay. Do you want me to come sleep with you tonight? And she said, yeah, would you? And that was the only time that she's ever been scared, but most of the time she just blows it off. And the other ones, they've been scratched, they've heard voices, they've heard their names called. And I find it interesting that, people say things like there's a lot of controversy about sleep paralysis. Science wants to explain it with science. The paranormal wants to explain it with paranormal. And I have experienced sleep paralysis a few times from, I would say, about 25 years old till about a couple years ago. I had it 3 or 4 times. And every time it was the same. And, I would wake up and I couldn't move and I couldn't breathe. And I would hear like growling, like laughter, like somebody was laughing at me.
Right.
And, I would just lay there because I couldn't move. And I would wait until finally I could move. And then, I felt like I was running in like molasses. Like I couldn't even move. Like it was worse than moving in water. And I remember kind of just running to the next room to find either my husband at the time or my daughter, just somebody to kind of snap out of it and be like, I'm hyperventilating, I can't breathe, I can't move. And then each and every time I remember, they'd be like, okay, calm down, okay. Like, lay down. And I would lay down and I would scream in like pain. I'm like, oh my God, check my back, what's wrong with my back, what's wrong? And they would go, oh my God. And I'm like, what? And they're like, your back is completely scratched, like you're bleeding. And I'd be like, what? And, of course, take a picture, show me with yourself. And up there, lo and behold, I'm loaded with scratches. So if sleep paralysis is science, well then explain the growling and explain why I'm scratched up in places that I cannot even reach.
Right.
And my friends, I have demonologist friends who are very Catholic, and they take the Catholic aspect on everything, and they're saying, listen, Saint Benedict, he's amazing. Everybody always preaches Saint Michael, Saint Michael, Saint Michael. They're like, listen, Saint Benedict, we've always had 100% luck with this. We're going to send you this in the mail. It's exercised Saint Benedict medal. We want you to wear it. Keep it on you all the time. This is what you need. Do not take it off. Do not take it off the shower. And that was years ago, and ever since I started to do that, I was never bothered again.
But I've
never been touched, not scratched, nothing.
Wow. But do you think, another question, do you think that you and your family were meant to be at that place in time to experience that?
I think so. I mean, it's just, you lose your entire home and everything, all of your possessions to a flood. Right. Which takes you to that house. Which takes you next to a cemetery where your family's buried, which in turn, I don't think I definitely think things happen for a reason. I'm a huge believer in that because of all the things I've experienced over the years, but I do, in a way, I really do. I've talked to countless people. People love to message me on Facebook and say, hey, I lived in your house. This is a rental property. It's been a rental property since the day we moved out. People tell me all the time, oh, I lived in your house for 6 months, or I lived in your house for a year, but I never really experienced anything. And I'm like, well, it doesn't shock me because whatever it was came with us. Right. It didn't stop, obviously, but I say I'm not shocked. If it was just meant to stay at that property, why did it continue? Why did it come to a house that we bought as older people who apparently lived there for 50 years and never had any issues? So we're moving into a house that's
Carin,
okay,
Was there ever an exorcism done there?
Yeah, there was 3 at the original house and 2 at the new house. Okay,
so a lot of people, whenever they move into a home and they say, oh, I don't experience anything, well, I mean, if there was an exorcism done there, why would you? And so I don't know, I find it funny that people like to say that whenever they move into a house that was haunted, and if it's been exorcised, then yeah, maybe you're not going to experience anything.
Right.
And so,
it's pretty scary because one of the residents I heard, they were like, I got a message on Facebook from somebody asking me for help. They're like, oh, this is, I don't know how much I believe this, but it's definitely possible. Anything is possible. Some girl had messaged me about a year ago, and she was like, listen, I live in your house, and all this weird stuff is happening. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, what's happening? And the stuff that she told me was mostly like, I got this on a picture. I took a picture of this, and I saw this in the picture. I'm like, well, send me the pictures. And to be honest, a lot of it was like, reflection and sunshine coming in through the window. So, I've been doing this for a long time now, so I kind of know what all this stuff looks like. People send me a lot of pictures. And I got a message from somebody else that said, hey, I know so-and-so messaged you. Don't help her. And I'm like, what do you mean don't help her? They're like, she's trying to cause trouble in that house. I'm like, how so? And they said, well, her and her friends have been playing with Ouija boards and doing seances and trying to stir something up in that house. I'm like, well, that's not a good idea, but, if that's the case, then, count me out. Right. You know what I mean? But, that's the craziest thing I've heard since we left, that people are in there trying to cause things to happen, so.
As going back to your dad, I'm a U.S. Navy veteran myself, and what did your dad pass away from?
He was a diabetic for many years. Probably like in his mid to late 40s. He passed away at 74. So he was diabetic for quite some years, and as you know, I mean that does take a toll on your other organs. And he started to have some kidney issues, and he was at stage 4, which is, almost dialysis. And he flat out said, I'm not living on dialysis. I'm not going every day. That's not happening. Not doing it. So, total separate issue. They moved out to live with my sister. Because I think my dad knew he didn't have long, and he's the kind of guy who would never leave my mom with a mortgage, bills, anything to clean up. So, he decided, okay, we'll sell the house, we'll move in. They have a nice big house, they have their own room, their own area. We'll move in. That was October of 2016. In March of 2017, they went out on a March day, but it was 55 degrees, and he slid. He went to the courthouse to register to vote out in that county. He slid on ice, he fell, he broke his pelvis, he broke ribs, he broke his hip, and they put him in the hospital. He was there for like 45 days, and the whole time he was there, his kidneys just declined, and from all the medication they were giving him, painkillers, and he got out for about a month, and then he went home and he passed away at home with my mom. So that was June 2017.
Yeah, we're sorry to hear that.
Sorry to hear that.
So,
let me ask you this other question. There's a famous picture of your dad that's on the internet where he's actually standing at a wall and he's pointing at the wall. Can you tell us what is he actually pointing at in that wall?
yeah, actually, my dad used to see figures in the basement a lot. The basement seems to be a little bit active, but there's another picture on the internet with a bunch of chairs stacked. Everybody asks if that is related. I'm like, no, that has nothing to do with us. Those chairs stacked all up in the corner, not our house. But they would see figures in the basement a lot. And the basements were sort of connected. Like, my mom could see my grandmother when they were down there doing laundry. And a lot of the times my grandmother, my mom would also see something. Like, my mom would see something, and then it would pass through the other side, and my grandmother would see it. And this would be, like, simultaneous. Like, did you just see that? Yeah, I just saw that. But he was pointing to a figure. And also, that basement, we would have a lot of issues. Like, there was constant pipes constantly flooding. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times I remember my parents going down there to bail out the basement. The washer would be fixed. The next day it would do it again. The washer would be fixed. The next day it would do it again. And also there was, I'm not sure if a picture is around of it, but there was a crack that formed in the floor in the basement. And there was like red stuff coming up out of the crack, but it would almost look like blood, and it would be like wet. You know, it would be red and a wet liquid, and it would dry very quickly, so you'd have these red stains. And, you know, nobody ever knew what it was, obviously, and I remember my mom was finally like, there was no smell. It wasn't like sewer water. It was nothing. No, like, foul smell coming from it, nothing. Just the red stuff would come up, it would dry around the crack, and that would be it. So the one day my mom was like, all right, you know what? Let's dig. Let's just dig. Like, let's just get to the bottom of this. And I remember, even as I was a little kid, I was like, this is awesome. We're digging in the basement. I got my little spoons. I got my little shovel. Nothing. Never found a thing. Wow. Not a pipe. Nothing. And we, dug down a couple feet, and there was never anything. Never wet soil. No more red stuff. Nothing.
Let me ask you something, because we're running out of time here. Is there anything else that you're currently working on that you might want to share with the people listening out there?
I'm not right now. I will be doing an event at Fort Mifflin in Philadelphia. That'll be coming up. I'm actually going to do a lecture there. Maybe I can share with you guys down the road. They don't have the whole thing planned out. It's going to be this spring. It's supposed to be in June. They don't have all the details worked out yet. So I'm actually going to be there in person. I'm actually going to speak. So I could post that on Facebook. I could kind of share that with you guys. But other than that, I do small projects. I help people. I help local groups. I help, other paranormal teams. I don't belong to a team right now for reasons, some past experiences. But, I'm blessed that these days people do believe our family. People do respect us. The people that know me, they're always like, you're fantastic. I am a good soul. And people trust me. So I always tell people, I'm on Facebook. I don't have any fancy names. I'm Carin Smurl. That's who I am. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Messenger. People are more than free to contact me anytime. If I don't know the answer, I'll help you get the answer. If I can't help you because maybe, you're in California, I'm in Pennsylvania, I will find a team that I trust in your area to help you. That's all I could do. I just want to be there for people because I know we didn't have anybody at that time. Like I said, it was a way different time. I know you guys can agree. There wasn't paranormal shows like there were. It wasn't so it was just, people looked at you like you were crazy. That's it, period. So we didn't have a lot of people to turn to. So even if, somebody messages me at 3 o'clock in the morning just says, like, hey, I'm scared something's going on in my house, I never turn people away. I'm going to help as best I can to at least even talk to you so you're not alone and you don't think you're crazy. So feel free anytime, and I'll get you pointed in the right direction and get you some help.
And if you ever run into anybody that needs help in either the southern states in America or up above in Canada, we're World Paranormal Research Society, and we've been doing it for 10 years. And I'll send you some information on us as well. But,
I do, because I do like to find people that I trust, because I don't want to point somebody in a direction and have it be like one of these groups that is just kind of out doing it for the fun of it, kind of ghost hunting, as I like to call it, and just doing it to see like what they could find. I want people who know what they're doing, have the resources, can be trusted, so by all means, please send me your information. I will definitely use you guys as a resource for sure.
That's awesome. And yeah, there's a lot of, that's what we tell everybody. There's a lot of ghost hunters out there, and then there's paranormal researchers. And it's two different things completely.
Yeah, it's just,
absolutely,
we're not in it for the financial gain or a TV show. We're in it to sincerely help people that have maybe felt like they have nowhere else to turn, because like you said, people think they're insane, they're nuts, they're hallucinating, and we've seen a lot of things. And myself being a born empath, I mean, I've grown up with this ability. I know even my own parents wouldn't believe me, and it's just people want to institutionalize you. They want to put you on drugs, and they think you're nuts. So I mean, we've had to live in the shadow, or I've had to live in the shadows growing up, so we know that the various plights, or the scrutinization that people will come up against with people that are skeptics.
Right.
And if you keep us posted, we'll share the information when you're going to be giving the speech and seminar. And we appreciate you joining us. It's been awesome.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome.
Thank you for shedding some light on some of the questions that we may have had. Thank you again for taking the time.
You're very welcome.
All right. Talk to you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Have a good one. Bye.
I've also, quickly before we wrap it up, I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast where Ed Warren said that he had audio tapes that he handed over to the church. This is another reference on social media quickly. It said, Ed Warren, in attempting to defend his refusal to allow the CSI team to investigate the Smurls home, he actually called a press conference, and he claimed he had the tapes of the terrifying sounds and a videotape of the dark form. When somebody asked for them, he couldn't remember the name of the TV company to which he gave the tapes. And he also said that the Catholic Church had the evidence, and then again the Catholic Church said that they didn't. So that's another disputing story.
Well, if you the Catholic Church said they didn't 10 years later.
Exactly.
So you're going to have different people in the Catholic Church by that point.
Right.
At that location. So maybe Ed did turn it in. I believe he did turn it in to the Catholic Church. I'm glad that she was able to shed some light. At least now I want to see the film, because I haven't seen the film. So I'd like to see the film, since the film is accurate. According to Carin, the film is accurate, so that's good for us to know. And so she definitely shed some light there. Again, what
I just think this gives you another perspective on a story you may or may not know about. It was in mainstream media due to a lot of, in part of Ed and Lorraine Warren being involved in this other case as well. And you see it from, she had nothing but good things to say about Ed and Lorraine Warren, nothing negative.
Nothing negative. And she had good things to say about Ed and Lorraine, and we've been defending Ed and Lorraine, and it was refreshing to have an interview where nothing negative was said about Ed and Lorraine. When I asked who all the individuals was that was there, we heard the names. Again, I think it's inappropriate for somebody to take the name, and I know I'm beating a dead horse with this one, but for somebody to take the name and try to claim work for something they didn't do, it's just wrong. And so we actually tried to help this individual whose name I'm not going to mention, but you know who you are. We tried to help you as an affiliate, and he wanted to devour our entity, our organization, and have us just say that we were with them. And we're not going to throw away who we are after we've been doing it for so long. Hopefully this individual can turn over a new leaf and realize that there is power in affiliates. And we've actually turned down, and you can attest to this, 2 television show offers to date.
Correct.
And the information that you see about us on our website and on YouTube is not all the information or cases that we've handled. That's only the public cases that we've actually chose to give away and put out there for people to see. And when you look at those cases, it speaks for itself. And we've handled much more cases than that. We've had 2 networks contact us looking to do a show on us, and we haven't done one yet, but that might be changing soon. So I just wish this individual would not have had been so cocky with their relative's name. Because this person don't even have the last name.
No, I mean, we don't need to name drop when we go and our evidence speaks for itself.
Yeah,
We've written books.
2 networks. 2 networks.
And we chose to turn it down because it wasn't what we wanted to do at that time. I mean, we're very ethical people. We're in it for the right reasons. I mean, most other people, they may have just... oh, I'm going to be on a TV show, let's just drop everything, worry about the money. No, we're here for the evidence and for the sincere desire to genuinely help people and to respect our clients' wishes and not just go all over TV, you know, sporting expensive clothes and all this equipment that really, I mean, you know, we don't want to be told or held hostage by what a network it wants us to do.
And you know, and well, we turned down 2 offers, you know, but there may be a chance where we not going to turn down the 3rd offer, so we'll have to see. And you know, we judge who we communicate with based on how they interact with us now. And so for this individual to not accept an affiliate program, again, I think was a bad mistake, because we're the type of people that share the wealth, and I think that we could have definitely helped out. But you know,
we don't have to prove our worth to anybody. Our evidence documentation proves itself, and it stands on its own. We don't need to.
Actually, in the description below will be the website, worldparanormalresearchsociety.net, and you can click on there. It's a newer site. We had an older site and then changed hosting companies, so I'm working on updating it and getting more and more information on there, but it's got enough information on there now. And unlike some people who say they're a minister, I'm actually a real preacher, and so I'm not just saying I'm a minister. I'm actually a real preacher. And again, there's a lot of people out there claiming to be exorcists and demonologists. I'd like to see your credentials. I would like to see your credentials.
And we are also published authors. I am an empath, and I also have a background in mental health. So we bring a lot of skills and mindset to the table. We just don't come with the newest toys, bells and whistles. We have education, experience to back everything up, folks.
And so with that, we'd like to say, and you know what I find strange too? How's somebody been all around the world? I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it go. So, thank you, Carin.
Thank you, Carin. It was
for joining us.
Very enlightening show. A breath of fresh air to see somebody from maybe very horrific circumstances turn it around to a positive to help people now.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Thank you. That's
Take
it for
care.
us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.